Street Journal is reporting that another private equity firm, KKR, has just spent over $2 billion to purchase more than 5,200 apartment units across 18 mid and high-rise buildings. Now, if you're wondering, has anyone in Congress tried to do anything about this? Stay tuned. We're gonna get to the details on that in just a moment. But first, let's check in with KKR, this private equity firm. So according to the Wall Street Journal, in April, Blackstone agreed to pay $10 billion for the Landlord Apartment Income REIT, while last month, Brookfield bought a portfolio of 7,000 apartments for $1.55 billion. And then you have KKR with the latest news that they're purchasing more than 5,200 apartment units. Now, if you're unfamiliar with how this whole scheme works, here's a quick video explaining it.
Private equity firms raise money from institutional and accredited investors, so not just from any ordinary person. Those funds are then invested in different types of assets with the aim of getting a return on investment.
A lot of these private equity-backed firms really moved into the apartment market, the multifamily market, in a big way after the last housing crisis. They also moved into the single-family market. What they do is they go out and they find these buildings. They typically make some changes quickly to try to increase the profit.
Vogel, a housing reporter with ProPublica, says private equity firms increase profit by raising rent and cutting other building expenses.
Which is why oftentimes, if you see some of the investigative reporting pertaining to these private equity owned buildings, the residents of those buildings refer to their landlord, the private equity firm, as their slumlord because they'll have black mold in the building, their AC units or heaters won't work, they'll call for maintenance and repairs and they won't hear back for months and months and months. Because think about it, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world. You want to maximize your profits to return on investment for your investors, your private investors. So you're gonna cut costs. And the way you cut costs is by neglecting the tenants in the buildings that you've purchased.
Yeah, this makes all the sense in the world. Here's what I mean by that. So once the Supreme Court legalized bribery, all of the other things that the gangs used to do and the mob used to do were going to get legalized because the reason the mob did it is because they made a lot of money. So now you can just make it legal. So the most spectacular case, of course, is heroin. That's what's in OxyContin. And so they just made it legal and guys in suits sold it. We did a whole documentary about this called Oxy Kingpins. And the guys at the top made tons of money. They bothered to arrest some of the pharmacists and some of the street dealers because it was heroin. And so then you look at the credit card industry, payday loans. Those were called loan sharks, and it used to be illegal. And it used to be illegal to charge like 400% interest, et cetera, that they're doing now. Now it's been legalized. Loan sharks wear suits, and they give money to politicians. And now in this case, slumlords used to be illegal. You couldn't just buy a place and then never take care of anything that was in the property and have the renters suffer because of that, and the politicians would protect their citizens. But since the politicians only protect their donors now, they're taking slumlords that used to be at the local level, like Donald Trump's dad, and they're industrializing it. So private equity is like, oh, great idea. We were making money off of all of the other criminal activity. Let's just do this. Everything's legal now.
And you'll notice that private equity firms tend to focus their building purchases and unit purchases in states that have weaker protections for tenants. And it's because they don't want to deal with all of those regulations. So right now, I've noticed that if you look at a map of where private equity has focused most of its energy, it's in those states that have weaker protections for tenants. And remember, we're talking about rental units right now. We're not even talking about the residential housing units that middle-class families tend to buy, starter homes, things like that. That used to be the #1 way that ordinary working Americans were able to build wealth. But now we have a lack of inventory in the housing market that is further exacerbated by private equity purchasing the residential real estate that ordinary Americans used to buy. Now, private equity firms boast about outsized returns, and the most aggressive funds seek a profit of 20% or more on investors' contribution minus management fees. And sadly, the problem is only getting worse. Institutional investors may control 40% of US single-family rental homes by 2030, according to MetLife Investment Management. That is a disaster. And so the question is there any cop on the beat? Is there anyone in Congress who's concerned about this? Is anyone gonna do a damn thing about it? Because the Biden administration especially, they want you to believe that the economy is doing great, and then they can't understand why Americans don't feel like it's doing great. We've talked about the inflation as it pertains to grocery prices and all of that stuff, but it's also housing. Housing is crushing Americans. So you would assume that a president who wants to get reelected would be laser focused on this issue. Nothing from the Biden administration.
Of course.
Some nonsense about like, oh, we're gonna offer some additional resources to first-time home buyers. But that doesn't solve the main issue, the root of the problem, which is the lack of inventory available to Americans.
Yeah, so guys, the smaller problem is the slumlord problem. Believe it or not, that's a small. The larger one is that you buy 40% of the homes, that's 40% that the average American was going to buy and create wealth with. Housing is the #1 way that Americans create wealth. When you take that away from them, the banks then take that wealth and keep it for themselves. And then they've got you in another corner. Not only are you poor for the rest of your life then and can never build wealth, in fact, you have to give more and more in rent and get less and less in terms of upkeep of the property. But on top of that, then you're attached to the corporation that you work for because you can't afford to lose that job. And we all become their indentured servants. This is not an exaggeration. It's exactly the path that we're on right now. And since both Democrats and Republicans take literally millions upon millions of dollars from these companies in campaign contributions, they're never going to protect us. And they're gonna turn all of us into serfs. We are going massively backwards. Supreme Court legalized bribery. If you live outside America, you might be shocked by that. But they could just give infinite money to these politicians.
I know, but look, on the other hand, let's go to graphic 6 because this is important for you all to know about. It'll make you feel better. Shares of KKR are up more than 31% year to date. So those investors, great return on your investment. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's also talk about what Congress has been up to. I already said the Biden administration not really concerned about this issue clearly, but at the end of last year, Senator Jeff Merkley and Representative Adam Smith actually introduced a bill that would, over a 10-year period, require hedge funds and large institutional investors to completely divest from single-family home ownership, called the End Hedge Fund Control of American Homes Act. The bill would require large funds to sell off 10% of their homes each year over a decade. Now, that hasn't gone anywhere, and it was proposed at the end of last year. I don't think it's ever gonna go anywhere with the Congress that we have now. I don't mean to be a black-pilled host on this issue, but I also live in reality. Okay.
Yeah, no, there has to be a takeover of one of the parties by an actual populist, not fake populists. Otherwise, we're totally screwed. So that's a perfectly good bill. There's much quicker ways to do it, etc. By the way, if it had any chance of success, there would be overwhelming propaganda against it.
Of course.
And all of a sudden, you would see Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN anchors all united, and they would all be saying, this is communism. I mean, these poor private equity guys, they already have the property, and these communists want to come and take their property away from them as if they live in the homes.
No one ever thinks about the poor private equity guys.
No, that's why they have to go and cry on cable news. So last thought here, look, the system, no one ever defines, right? The Democrats go, we're protecting the system, and they are implying they're protecting democracy, the Constitution, etc. The Republicans pay lip service to the Constitution nonstop, okay? But that's not what we're worried about. We love democracy and the Constitution. The system that we're worried about as both left-wing and right-wing populists is the current system of corruption where no one does anything. Guys, if Biden wanted to win the election, think about what Anna's saying. How easy would it be to come out and go, They're buying up all your homes. They already bought, like, look at all this, 30, 40% of the homes are gone already. I'm not gonna let them get away with it. I'm gonna take that Merkley bill and I'm gonna double it and we're gonna pass it, okay?
That would be impossible for Biden to do.
Okay, but if he did that, he would pick up 2-3 points at least. Every real American I talk to says, I can't afford a home anymore. My parents used to be able to buy a home. I can't buy a home. How am I gonna provide for my family, right? It's a massive, giant issue that none of the politicians are doing anything about. It's so easy. Why won't Biden or even Trump do it? Because they're bought. They're totally corrupt. They get money from these same exact banks. So that's the sick, sick system and corporate rule that we live under. And it's about to get way worse.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members, because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us. Become a Young Turk.